Greetings from Delhi and NCR. Myself, Dr. Rajiv Gupta, presently professor and head working in a IDST Dental College, Bodhinagar, Ghaziabad. So first and foremost, I would like to thank Scientific Committee of 23rd IPSPG Convention for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts as a keynote speaker. So I believe my keynote lecture is the last lecture. So it gives me a responsibility of a showstopper. So first of all, I would like to congratulate Scientific Committee for having a plethora of topics and the galaxy of speakers of international repute. So it brings a more responsibility of me as a last keynote speaker of a convention. So I assure you that anyone of us attending the lecture should get few clinical or a theoretical tip which can be utilized in our day-to-day clinical practice. So let us burn the stage together. So bringing with my presentation, these are the clinical pictures, few of the clinical situations that will be regularly seen by any of the prosthodontists in their day-to-day clinical practice or colleges. So if I ask young budding prosthodontists that what the first thought came to their mind, what could be the treatment planning they could think of looking at these clinical situations. So the alarming or the treatment plan which I can expect from at least 90% of the budding prosthodontists will be to go for the implants. So remove the decayed teeth and just go for the immediate or the delayed conventional procedures of the implantology. So my question is why? Is it love for the surgery or the blood? Is it financial gain? Is it a peer pressure from different companies or the friends that to have a bulk of the deals of the implantology and just to finish the stock of the implants? So I can show numerous number of the photographs which shows this indiscriminate uses of the implant. And don't mind me saying that when I was doing my post-graduation days, Dr. Padmanabhan used to tell me that, Rajiv, from the day implantology has come, we implantologists have become dogs. Wherever we see the bone, we just rush to place the implant. We don't see the future. So we need to accept the truth. We need to see the evidence that like the periodontitis is the reality, even the peri-implantitis is a reality. And the day is no far that we can have a book saying peri-implantology as a subject. So we need to accept the limitation of the implants also. We cannot have 100% success rate with the implants. I'm not against implants, but I believe that our aim should be as a prosthodontist to save a tooth. Rightly said by the speaker before my presentation, she has clearly mentioned that even I believe the same thing. All prosthodontists should believe in the fact that it's still, we can say, old is gold. So Devon dictum stated long back, standing tall against all odds and the time frame, that the preservation of what remains is more important rather than meticulous replacement of what is missing. So all prosthodontists sitting in the virtual conference will agree to the fact that the naturally retained root is the ultimate dental implant. So that whatever clinical cases I have shown, all these have been restored to their aesthetics as well as to the function without using of implants. So all these things can be restored to the full function and the aesthetics without indiscriminate uses of the implant. So that brings today's topic of my presentation, that old wine in a new bottle. Why I'm saying old wine? Because older the concept, so we know how important or the expensive is old wine is. So older the concept, better it is. So it has a time-tested gold standard. So I'll be covering few important, because the subject is very vast. So I'll be trying to cover as much as possible aspects which is more critical for the success of any kind of a post-endodontic restoration. So with a proper endodontic treatment and adequate restoration, pulpless teeth can serve indefinitely as an integral part of the dental apparatus. And the most important critical factor for the success of any post and core restoration is having a good ferrule, promotes periodontal health, harmonious occlusion, and the aesthetics while preventing any kind of a micro leakage. So from the time of Perry-Fauchard, lot of materials, lot of technique have been introduced till date to treat endodontically treated teeth. So if we have a thorough understanding of the subject, if we have a thorough understanding of the principle behind post and core, we can definitely have a restoration having a maximum retention and minimum risk of the failure. So why we are discussing endodontically treated teeth different? Are they different than the tooth with a pulp? So definitely there are architectural changes, there are altered physical and the aesthetic characteristics, and there is a loss of neurosensory feedback. So I must say that endodontically treated teeth have a special needs that exceeds the requirement of the teeth with a viable pulp. So what are the factors? Multiple caries, fractures, or the excess preparation can lead to the damage of the tooth. We can have after doing the endodontic treatment, because of the absence of the pulp and the moisture, the tooth will become more brittle, There is an effect of the all biomechanical preparation and the chemicals used during the procedure. Sometimes we find internal resorption, and also because of the loss of mechanical reception, sometimes fracture can be seen. So all these factors make any endodontically treated tooth more sensitive, more asking demand. So we have to have a fixed aim and the principles behind treating an endodontically treated tooth. So what is the aim? We should have a good coronal seal. We should be able to restore our tooth to full function and aesthetics. We should resist functional load. We should maintain periodontal health and also reduce the stresses by favorable distribution of the stresses along the long axis of the tooth. So question arises whether all endodontically treated teeth needs crowns. So when we are talking about the posterior teeth, yes, we should crown all the posterior teeth that have occlusal interdigitation with any opposing tooth, but it do not enhance clinical success of the anterior endotreated teeth with a minimal loss of the tooth structure. So if we have only access opening, we should just seal that access opening. There is not always a need of a post-endodontic restoration for such condition. And one thing I would like to stress here, a lot of time we have this imagination that when we are doing post and core, we are actually strengthening the tooth. So it is not true. We are actually weakening the tooth if it is not rightly done. So the primary purpose of any post and core restoration is to provide retention for the core. So before jumping onto the treatment, we have to have some few evaluation. We have to endodontically, periodontically, restoratively, and aesthetically evaluate the tooth before deciding the final treatment plan for the patient. So in endodontic evaluation, we have to see, we should have a good apical seal. There should be no tenderness on percussion, no pus discharge, no active inflammation. But we need to accept that fact that real knowledge is to know the extent of the one's ignorance. So why I have quoted this statement here? Because we have to accept the fact as a prosthodontist, we might not able to do the endodontics that well. So for success of any post and core restoration, the good endodontics is the key for the success. So we have to accept the fact that her friend zaruri hota hai. So we have to have a teamwork. We have to have a endodontist in our team so that he can perform a good root canal over which we can have a good post endodontic restoration. During periodontal evaluation, we have to make sure that we are not violating the biological width, because if biological width has been violated, we are going to end with a bad clinical results. So any mutilated tooth in which restorative treatment would compromise the junctional epithelium or the connective tissue attachment, we should either think of the periodontal crown lengthening procedure, or we have to think in the terms of the orthodontic extrusion of the tooth before jumping onto the post-endodontic restoration. In the restorative evaluation, we have to evaluate for previous caries, fracture, or any restoration. So if all these things are restorable, we can continue with the treatment. If it is non-restorable, it is better to decide for the extraction on the same day. In aesthetic evaluation, we have to evaluate for the quality of the gingiva. So thin gingiva may transmit a shadow of the dark root through the tissues. Metal or the dark carbon fiber post or the amalgam placed in the canal can result in an unacceptable gingival discoloration. So also the translucency of the all ceramic crowns also has to be considered before selecting the material of the choice for post and the core. So who says color doesn't matter? Color does matter, especially when we work in a aesthetic zone. So the tooth colored fiberglass reinforced composite resins or the zirconia post can be used in the aesthetic areas. Similarly, we have a tooth colored rather opaque. Earlier, we used to have an opaque core material, but now we have a composite core material which can be used in a aesthetic region. So coming to the treatment planning for any endodontically treated tooth, the factors which can influence our treatment planning could be the amount of the remaining tooth structure, the anatomic position of the tooth, functional load on the tooth, and the aesthetic requirement of the particular tooth in question. So coming to the amount of the remaining tooth structure, so as we discussed, especially in the anterior region, if we have minimal damage on the tooth, we have just minimal tooth preparation, excess preparation, we can just manage to block that excess cavity so that there is no micro leakage and there is no need of any kind of the restoration. But if there is more than half of the tooth structure lost, then we have to need to think in the term of a post and core. Anatomic position of the tooth is very critical. Similarly, as I said, for the anterior teeth, if we don't have too much of the damage, we can manage it without even a crown. Forget about post and core. The non-vital tooth, where we have a significant tooth structure loss, there we need to think in the terms of post and core. For the posterior teeth, if we have a sufficient tooth structure, need not to go for post and core, but definitely some kind of the post-endodontic restoration, either onlay or the crown is needed. But if there is an excess damage loss, structure loss, then we have to think in the terms of post and core. Coming to the functional load, especially in the cases of the posterior teeth, where we expect our load to be more vertical. more along the long axis of the tooth. So if we have a sufficient tooth structure which can provide us a good retention and the resistance form, we should not opt for a post and core. But coming to the condition like this, if we have minimal tooth structure which cannot provide us good retention and resistance, in that particular case, we need to think in terms of the post and core. Coming to the aesthetic requirements, the most common focus should be timely endodontic intervention. Because if we are delaying the endodontic intervention because of the non-vitality of the tooth, sometimes the tooth becomes darker in the shade. So we should attempt timely endodontics. And the current restorative material what we have for the post as well as a core material and the final restorative material, we have n number of the aesthetic materials to work in the aesthetic region. So what are the basic components used in the restoration of the non-vital teeth? We have to have a good remaining gutta percha to maintain the good apical seal. We have to have a post, that is a metallic extension into the radicular portion of the tooth. We have to have a core, that is the coronal portion, and the final coronal restoration, that is the crown over the core. So coming to the post is defined as a metallic or a non-metallic material which is inserted into the root canal to aid in retention of a core component. So what is the rationale for the use of the post? It should be for the retention of the restoration and also to protect the tooth structure. So as I repeatedly mentioned, the post is technically weakening the tooth. So if we are not following the right principles, we can either weaken our tooth, but we cannot strengthen our tooth. So we can protect the tooth structure by following the right principles so that the forces are distributed uniformly along the long axis of the tooth. So what are the indications of the post? They are indicated to retain the restoration, to retain the crown, to protect the remaining tooth structure by distributing the force equally, and to maintain the marginal integrity. There are a few contraindications of the post as well. Contraindications are abnormal root anatomy, extensive caries, which includes root caries, any perforations, external resorptions, short or dilacerated roots, blunderbuss canals, young patient in which root formation is not completed, patients with poor oral hygiene, and the most important contraindication when we have a sufficient coronal tooth structure left, where we can have a retentive restoration, retentive crown without the helping of a post. Coming to the classification of the post and core. So I have come across n number of the classification, but I have found this classification most extensive as well as compact at a time. So classification of the cast post according to the type of the alloys, it can be gold alloys, chrome cobalt or the nickel chromium. According to the number, it could be single or the multiple. According to the fabrication, it could be one piece, two piece, or the combination of the cast and the prefabricated post. Classification of the prefabricated post, they can be classified on various factors. It could be according to the taper. So it could be parallel, tapered, or the combination. According to the surface character, it could be smooth, serrated, or a self-threading. According to the fit, it could be active or passive. According to the material, it could be metallic or non-metallic. In metallic, we have titanium, stainless steel, or brass. In non-metallic, we have non-aesthetic carbon fiber post or the aesthetic polyethylene, glass fiber, quartz, or a ceramic post. As per light transmission, it could be light transmitting or non-light transmitting. According to the vent, it could be with vent or without vent. And according to the monoblock formation, it could be with monoblock formation or no monoblock formation. So recent example of a monoblock formation is your Edelweiss post and core. So what are the ideal requirements for any post system? It should be simple and safe, biocompatible, should support the crown, should provide resistance from the stresses to the root, provide maximum protection to the root, adequate retention within the root. It should have a pleasing aesthetics wherever indicated, high radiographic visibility, easily retrievable if needed, and should be less expensive. So what are the features for the successful design? We should have a good apical seal. We should do minimal enlargement in the terms of the diameter. The length should be adequate. There should be a vertical stop. There should be anti-rotational features, and the proper marginal design should be there. So we'll be discussing. I believe the desire of the knowledge, like the thirst of the riches, increases ever with the acquisition of it. So I'm sure we are hungry for more. So I'll be discussing few important key points which can ultimately lead to the success or failure of our post-endodontic restoration. So the first factor is whether to go for a rigid or a non-rigid post. So if a post which is having higher modulus of elasticity than the anchoring material, that is the dentine, stresses are found adjacent to the bottom of the rod. And for the flexible post, which can cause flexion, where we can have a problem of open crown margins. So a lot of studies I've seen where we are comparing a metal post with a fiber post, and I always wonder whether the comparison is valid, since both are post. But the modulus of elasticity, if we see that fiber post of a different companies come up from I can say from the range of 13 to 49 gigapascal, which is very close to the dentine, but it is far lesser than the modulus of elasticity of any other metal used for the fabrication of either prefabricated or a cast post material. So that is the reason why we see the difference in the location if we get a fracture of the residual remaining root structure. So whenever we are using a fiberglass reinforced post, we can find the fracture near the cervical third, and we are finding it in the near the apical third whenever we are using a metal post. So this is attributed to the flexibility of the post. So what should be the ideal post? So it should be resilient enough to cushion any impact coming on them, and should be strong enough to resist any kind of a permanent deformation. So the next factor, important factor, which can play a key role is the length of the post. So as the post length increases, retention increases, but the relationship is not linear. So extremely long post can cause the damage to the apical seal, and also it can cause the risk of the root perforation. So ideally the post should be as long as possible without jeopardizing the apical seal or the strength of the remaining root structure. So this is the picture which clearly depicts if we are going for a shorter post, there is a high possibility of a fracture because it is a simple lever principle. So if we are having a longer post, we are making the movement less possible by moving a object away from the fulcrum. So this is a simple lever principle. By increasing the length, we can decrease the load on the tooth. So if we have a very small post, it will be non-retentive. If we are having a small post to the half of the length of the root, it can cause fracture of the root structure. So the appropriate size or appropriate length of the post is required to have a longevity or the long prosthesis in the mouth. So what are the recommendations? Various authors have given various recommendations over a period of time. Few says preserve 3 to 5 millimeter of the GP at the apex. Few says it should be equal to the length of the crown. Few says 133% of the crown length, 150% of the crown length. As per the root length, few says 2/3 or the 4/5 of the root length. Few says it should be as long as possible. So the rule of the thumb is that we should preserve 4 to 5 millimeter of the apical gattapacha to maintain a good apical seal. The next important factor which can play a role is a post diameter. So increasing the diameter of the post doesn't provide a significant increase in the retention of the post. However, it increases the stiffness of the post at the expense of the remaining dentine and the fracture resistance of the post. So if we are going for a very narrow post, it doesn't have the basic structural durability. It will get deformed under load. And if we are having an excessively wider diameter, definitely it will jeopardize the strength of the tooth and cause the fracture of the remaining root structure. This is a stress analysis diagram which clearly shows having a very narrow diameter causes an excess generation of the stresses near the apex. So definitely diameter has a role to play in a success of the prosthesis. So what are the different philosophies for the diameter of the post? We have the conservationist, we have the preservationist, and we have the proportionist. So conservationist says that we should prepare minimum of the canal space in the terms of the diameter, only one size larger than the last GP used. And the preservationist says we should have 1 millimeter of the dentine all around the post. And the proportionist says we can have 1/3 the width of the tooth in the cross section as a diameter for the post. So various authors have recommended various sizes of the post as per the arch, as per the tooth, and as per the root which we have selected for the particular tooth. So the next important factor is the shape of the post. So as per the shape, we can have cylindrical, we can have tapered, or we can have combination. So whatever the case may be, the first and the foremost requirement of the post is that it should snugly fit into the prepared canal space. It should not be loose. It should not be half seated. It should be seated snugly and fully into the prepared canal space. So if you see this study, we can appreciate for the tapered post, we have excessive stress generation at the apex. So whenever we have a tapered post, because of the wedging action, we have the excessive stress generation at the apex. So that is why we always prefer parallel sided post over your tapered post. And this picture clearly demonstrates why parallel sided post, because whatever forces are coming onto the parallel sided post, that has been directed along the long axis of the tooth, which is the most favorable forces on the any remaining natural tooth. But when we are having a tapered post, there is a high possibility that we can have a wedging effect, and we can have this kind of the failure and the fracture of the remaining root fragment. The next important factor is the surface configuration. So as per the surface configuration, we can have smooth, serrated, or the threaded. and as per their design, we can have active or a passive retention. So these are the various surfaces. Smooth and the serrated will be of a passive retention, and the threaded will be of a active retention. So when we compare these two posts, whenever we use a active post, they have a high retention, that is their advantage, but the fracture of the canal is the most common disadvantage. I'll be showing you one clinical case where we have used a dentatus threaded post, and in this is the final result. So we can very well say that what is the ideal post design should be passive, but we will say that passive is a less retentive. So to overcome that, a serrated or a roughened post is more retentive than any kind of a smooth post, and the controlled grooving of the post as well as the root canal can considerably increase the retention of the tapered post. The next most common and the most neglected factor is ferrule. Ferrule plays a most important and the critical role in success of any post-endodontic restoration. So it has come from the Latin word ferrum and the virola, that means iron bracelet. So if we are giving a right ferrule, it can reduce the wedging effect of the tooth, and it can reduce, various studies have shown that we can reduce the significance of the fracture of the tooth to the 1/3 of the as compared to the tooth which is not having any kind of the ferrule. So this picture clearly demonstrates what exactly we understand by ferrule. So if we have this much of the natural tooth structure present beyond our course, so this overlapping with the crown will give you a bracelet kind of an effect on the remaining tooth structure. So in this clinical picture, we can very well appreciate that how beautifully ferrule has been achieved. And this is a clinical picture in which there is no ferrule. So definitely it is bound to fracture. So how ferrule works actually? So if we see this photograph, this particular case is without ferrule. So when there is any kind of the load in this particular tooth, the kind of the forces, the wedging forces will come, and the oblique forces will come onto the remaining tooth structure, which will lead to the fracture of the root. And when we are having a ferrule, this will strengthen the remaining tooth structure, and it will not let the wedging action of the tapered post happen. So it can reduce the incidence of the fracture in the situation if we are giving the right ferrule. So this is one more picture which clearly demonstrates how ferrule is effective. So in this particular situation, if we are giving a crown, this will have a overlapping the metal bracelet kind of effect. So if this bracelet kind of effect is there, none of the forces can lead to the fracture of the root fragments. But if we don't have a ferrule, any kind of the forces can lead to the wedging action of the post and getting a part of the remaining root fragment. So what should be the height and width of the ferrule? So height is measured from the tooth preparation to the remaining tooth structure. So minimum 1.5 to 2 millimeter of the recommended ferrule height is indicated. And when we are talking about the width, it refers to the amount of the tooth structure remaining from the pulp chamber to the external surface of the tooth. So this particular region is the width of the ferrule. So minimum 1 millimeter is recommended to have a successful ferrule. So various studies have been conducted till date. So what they have concluded is 1.5 to 2 millimeter of the ferrule is required to have a successful prosthesis. And normally we are expecting more high ferrule, that is 1.5 ferrule in the labiolingual direction, and the lesser ferrule we can afford, that is the 1 millimeter in the mesiodistal direction, because we don't expect too much forces on the mesiodistal side. So when we talk about the maxillary incisors, we expect longer ferrule in the palatal side, since the angle of the forces is such, and for the mandibular incisor for the class 1 situations, we should go for the longer ferrule labially. So the features of ferrule, we should have a parallel walls. It should completely encircle the tooth. It should end on a sound tooth structure while we are respecting the biological width. So there will be so many times situations like this, there we don't have a sufficient tooth structure to have a ferrule exactly on a sound tooth structure. So in that particular case, what we have to do, either we have to go for a surgical crown lengthening to achieve the sound tooth structure so that we can establish a good ferrule, or we have to go for a orthodontic tooth extrusion. So this is a clinical example where we have gone for a orthodontic tooth extrusion, and then we have achieved a margin and the good ferrule on a sound tooth structure. The next important factor is the rotational resistance. So that factor becomes more important especially in the anterior region where we are going for a cast post and core. So any post with a circular cross section doesn't rotate during function if we are giving should not rotate during function if we are going for a good rotational resistance. So if we have a sufficient coronal structure, we automatically get a rotational resistance. But if it is not, we are having a less coronal structure, then by creating a small groove in the canal, we can have an anti-rotational feature. And mostly this groove is placed on the bulkiest portion of the root, that is your lingual aspect of the tooth. So this is a diagrammatic representation that with the help of the straight Fisher burr, anti-rotational groove is being created. This is the cross section. So this anti-rotational groove is being created on the lingual aspect of the tooth. And if we are talking about the multi-rooted teeth, automatically the extension of the core or the post into the multiple roots will give you a rotational resistance. Now coming to the fabrication of the post. So what all options do we have? We have n number of options because nowadays we have n number of companies having a patented designs. So I'll be discussing, considering the time limitation, I'll be discussing all 4 possible options. Means I'll be discussing prefabricated. In prefabricated, I'll be discussing one metal and one glass reinforced post. In the custom made post, I'll be discussing direct as well as indirect post. So starting with the prefabricated post, we have to select the right post matching the dimensions of the canal. It should be seated to the full depth. Or any discrepancy between the coronal part of the post and the canal wall can be filled with the core material during when we are doing a build-up. So this is a diagrammatic representation. We have to remove the GP as per the principles we have already discussed. We have to maintain 4 to 5 mm of the apical GP to maintain a good coronal seal. We have to do the widening as per with the help of the gate guidance as well as with the final drills given by the manufacturer. Then we need to try the size of the post. Once it is luted, we have to build a core, and then finally we have to fabricate a crown over the builded post and core. So I'll be discussing a clinical example with a Parapost XP. This is of a Coltine company. This is a parallel-sided and a passive fit post. So as we said, to prevent a wedging effect, we should always look for a parallel-sided post as compared to your tapered post, and passive fit instead of a active post, so that we should have a minimal forces or the remaining forces onto the dentine. So it is a one office visit technique. Again, similarly, we have to, as per the manufacturer recommendations, we have to remove the GP, enlarge the canal as per the desired side of the post we are planning. We have to fix the post. Same day, we have to develop a core over this thing, and we can give a temporary crown on the same day, and final processes within 4 or 5 working days. So this is the clinical case. This is the radiograph of the case, what I'm going to show you now. So the removal of the gutta percha is done with the help of the gate Clayton files. Sequential drilling has been done to get the right dimension of the post. The post is tried for the snugly fit into the prepared post space in the tooth. Once we have found the snug fit, we have to create a anti-rotational keyway on the lingual aspect of the tooth. Since I said for the any rotational post, any round post, we have to have a anti-rotation feature incorporated in our final preparation. So once that is done, we have to thoroughly rinse the prepared canal, and we have to dry it thoroughly with the help of the air spray as well as with the help of the paper points. So once that is done, we have to apply luting cement of our choice onto the walls of the prepared canal as well as onto the post. And we have to slowly insert the post into the prepared canal. Why I'm saying slowly? Because this is a non-vent kind of a post. And if we are using a tapered post, that has a property of a self-venting. So this post is a parallel post and with no vent. So to avoid any kind of a hydrostatic pressure of a cement built inside, we have to go a little slow so that we can have a escape of any excess cement, and the cement can vent easily. So this is after the core has been formed and the full final preparation has been done, and the impressions were made for the final crop. Coming to the aesthetic post, for that I'll be discussing glass reinforced post. So for glass reinforced post, the criteria is that we should have minimum 1/4 of the kernel to structure remaining. If we have lesser than 1/4 of the kernel to structure, we might have to select for a cast post rather to go for a glass reinforced post. So it can be used in an aesthetic zone. It can be used in a high stress generated areas because it can have a impact absorption quality. So their modulus of elasticity is as equal to the dentine. So their dampening effect is very good. So it can reinforce the root as well. So this is the clinical case. This is the radiograph. A good RCT has been done. All filling and the sealers has been removed. Gutta percha removed with the help of the gate guidance. The enlargement of the enlargement of the canal space has been done with the help of the sequential drilling. Once that is done, we have to check the snugger fit of the and the occlusal clearance of the post. So once we have achieved the right snug fit, we have to etch the tooth surface for minimum 15 to 20 seconds. Then apply the conditioning agent for the 30 seconds. All the excess has to be removed with the help of the air spray, as well as we can use a paper point in the canal. So once that is done, we have to use whatever the luting cement of our choice, apply onto the canal wall, apply onto the post, and slowly insert it to the prepared canal space. Once that has been done, for this particular case, we have done the core formation also on the same day. So the para core former has been used. We have to select the right size. Once that is right size has been selected, it is filled with the core forming material, and it has been inserted onto the prepared post space, post inserted post. So once it is fully set, we have to remove the core former with the help of the scalpel blade, and then the final tooth preparation can be done on the same day, and the final impression can be made. So after making impressions, we have fabricated a provisional crown for the patient, and this is on the same day. Within 1 hour, you can achieve from the pre-op to the post-op, and the final processes can be luted once it is been fabricated and received back from the laboratory. Now coming to the cast post, they have advantages of a close approximation to the prepared space. They have a high strength, they have a better fit, but few disadvantages as well. They are less retentive, they have a wedging action because of the tapered design, and it is a time and the technique sensitive technique. So this is a preparation for the cast post. We have to make sure that all features, whatever we have discussed till now, that we have to have a proper ferrule, we should have a counter bevel, we should have an anti-rotational feature. So all these things has to be prepared in the patient's mouth. And after that, we have two options. Either way, we can go for a direct technique or an indirect technique. So whatever technique we follow, we have to get the casting of the post, and we have to lute it in the patient's mouth, and then the final preparation has to be done to fabricate a final post-endodontic restoration. So coming to the fabrication technique for the custom-made post, we have two techniques, direct and the indirect. Direct, as name suggests, it has to be, the pattern has to be fabricated in the patient's mouth itself. And for the indirect technique, we are making impressions, pouring the cast, and over that we are fabricating a pattern. And so there is a long, lengthy lab step is being involved. Mostly direct techniques are recommended for a single canal cases, and indirect techniques are appropriate for the multiple canals. So when we are using a direct technique, what is the material of the choice? We can have a inlay wax, we can have a thermoplastic resin, autopolymerizing resin, or a light polymerizing resin. So first we have to start with the coronal preparation. Then we have to remove the GP to the desired length. We have to prepare the post space as per the given principles of the right width as well as the length. Once that has been achieved, we have to have a anti-rotational features as well. We have to give a contra bevel. So this contra bevel will also give us a little bit of a ferrule effect for the post itself. So once that has been done with the given material of the choice, we can fabricate a pattern in the patient's mouth itself. Once the pattern is been retrieved from the patient's mouth, it has to be preserved safely and shifted to the laboratory for the casting. So once casting has been done, we have to fix this in the patient's mouth and go for the final preparation and the impressions for the post-endodontic crown. So this case I'll be showing with a Parapost XP, that is the burnout post from the Coltin again. So again, the post space preparation has to be done as per the manufacturer recommendation with the sequential drilling of the burrs. Anti-rotational features has to be created. Then the Parapost is being used to fabricate a wax pattern. And once this is done, it is shifted to the lab for the casting. So I'll be showing this with a case. So the metal Parapost has been inserted to check the fit. And then we have used the pattern resin to fabricate a core portion. So once that is built it up, and once we have got the final structure, we have to prepare it in the patient's mouth. So this preparation has been done with the aerator. Once this has been done, it can be retrieved from the patient's mouth, and the casting has to be done. So once casting is achieved, it is to be luted back in the patient's mouth with the desired luting cement, and the final preparation to be performed, creating a proper ferrule and the margins, and the final crown to be manufactured and the luted in the patient's mouth. So this is the radiograph of the same case, that how well we have got the adaptation of our custom-made post with the help of the burnout post. Now coming to the indirect technique. So in the indirect technique, we have to make a good impression. That is the key, because it is very difficult to get a right impression inside the prepared canal. So for that, we have to have a support system. So we can cut an orthodontic wire of the desired length, which should be the loose fitting into the prepared canal space. We have to have a dye lubricant. We have to have a Lentino spirals that will be helping us in pulling the material inside the canal. Then we have to have a putty impression material and the final tray. So this cross section, if we see, this yellow thing is a orthodontic wire, which will be holding the light body impression material. This is the final putty impression material, and this is the metallic tray. So once the impression is made, we have to pour the cast, and over the cast we have to fabricate a wax pattern. So this is much easier process because there is no limitation of working in an oral cavity. So once that has been the wax pattern has been fabricated, it has to be casted and fixed in the patient's mouth. The final preparation to be done, and the final crown is to be luted. So this one more case, clinical case, I would like to show. In this particular case, again the final preparation of the post space has been done, keeping the ferrule and the anti-rotational features in mind. With the help of the Lentinos spiral, see how beautifully we have achieved the impression of the canal space. So once impression is poured, the wax pattern is fabricated, we have achieved the casting for the post. It is being luted in the patient's mouth. The final preparation has to be done, and this is the final patient prosthesis cemented in the patient's oral cavity. So a little bit about the core also. So what are the ideal requirements for any core? It should be easy to use. It should have a high compressive strength. It should be easy to manipulate. It should have a shorter setting time, good dimension stability, less micro leakage, and ability to bond to both tooth as well as post. So what are the material which can be used? We can have the metallic core, which is the inherent part of the post and core. We can have amalgam, glass ionomers, or the reinforced composite resins. But nowadays, the material of the choice and the ideal material for the core material would be to go for a dual cure resins. Why dual cure resins? Because for the dual cure, we have a light cure as well as chemical cure. So light cure will take care of our immediate finishing after we have done the light cure, and the chemical cure will take for the security of the full cure of the material where your light is not able to reach. So that is why the choice for the material for the core is your dual cure. So Paraform, I have shown with the clinical report as well. So we can use a core formers. Right size has to be checked and adapted in the patient's mouth. Once the right size has been achieved, material has to be mixed, put it into the core, do the light curing, remove the core former, and then we are ready for the final finishing of the core material on the same day. A few recent advances: the ceramic based post is nowadays very popular, but the main disadvantage is the cost, and definitely it is a choice of the material to go for the aesthetic zone because they have a dentine like shade. Also, if we are having a through gingival, we have a thin gingival biotech. So definitely if we are going for a non-aesthetic post, it will see through the post. So we should have a post which are having of more of a dentine like of a shade. The another recent advances is the Edelweiss direct system posted code. So what company claims it is of a high unique strength because this is a monoblock type of a posted core. And this post and core comes with the different sizes and the shape. So as per the clinical situation we have, we can select the right shape and the size. And the steps for the luting of this particular type of the Edelweiss post, this is a company given steps. We have to prepare whatever post system we are using, but ultimately the rules, the principles will remain same. We have to have the basic key features to achieve the success for our post and core. So the post space has been prepared using the final drills provided by the manufacturer. Etching has to be done with the 37% of the phosphoric acid for 15 to 20 seconds. Then we have to wash it thoroughly for 30 seconds. Canal has to be dried till we get the dry paper point. Then we have to check the fit of the selected Edelweiss post. Once we have found it suitable, we have to apply dentine adhesive into the canal and apply it for the 30 seconds. All excess has to be removed using a dry air. Then we have to apply a bonding on the Edelweiss post and cure it for the 30 seconds. Then once it is done, any nano hybrid flowable composite can be inserted into the canal, and the post is inserted, and we have to do the final curing of the material for minimum 60 seconds. So once that is done, we are done with the post and core in a single go with a minimal chairside time. Then we can go for the final preparation and the impression to fabricate the final processes for the patient. A little bit about the post removal. So whenever there is a failure of a post endodontic treatment, sometimes there is a need to remove the post. So there is a different methods by which we can remove the post. Grossly we can divide this method into the mechanical as well as the ultrasonic methods. And the mechanical can be divided into 3 categories. It could be drilled out, it could be trephine types, or it could be thin beak forceps. So when we are talking about the ultrasonic method, it is basically a tip with a 6-sided grip, frictional grip instrument. So we try to grip the post from all sides, and then with the help of the ultrasonic device, we try to move it counterclockwise. So it is very effective and I would say non-traumatic method to retrieve the post. Other mechanical methods is either of a trephine type or could be a pulling type. So we can have different types, like we have a different kits provided by different manufacturers. We have a Messeren kit, we have a Rudler post remover, Gonan post remover, little giant at the Egler post. But these are all means with which we have to be extra cautious that we should not damage the remaining root structure. So with this, I would like to conclude with the saying that while root canal therapy saves roots, sound post-endodontic restoration saves crowns. So by combining these two procedures, we can save n number of the teeth to back to their full form and the function. And there is no single post and core or the final restoration that can be used in the all clinical situations. So we have to have a thorough understanding of various systems, thorough understanding of the post and core principles. Because if we don't have a thorough principle of the basic post and core principle, we cannot achieve a success with any XYZ system provided by any company, whatever the claims made by that particular company. So we have to have a thorough knowledge of the subject. That is why I always say, to make beautiful music, the challenge is not to press the key. The challenge is know to which key to be pressed when to have a good music. So similarly, I say that not a single post and core system is ideal for every situation. We need to read our clinical situation. We need to have a basic knowledge, thorough knowledge about the subject, and then we should select the right post and core system for given clinical situation. So with this video, I would like to say, if we don't have a proper knowledge of the subject, so we can definitely land up in this kind of an embarrassing situation. And we have a very common nature, human nature, then when we fail in some kind of a treatment, we tend to tell that this particular technique is a failure. So probably what is being understood to be a limitation of the technique, it is actually a failure of a planning. So with this, on a lighter note, I would like to just show this video, because I always say that whether we are going for an implantology, whether we are going for a post-endodontic restoration, any XYZ treatment in a prosthodontics or in dentistry, we should always have a final result in our mind. Because if we don't have a final result in our mind, we always land up in some kind of a difficult situations like this. So this person putting a lot of effort. So any dentist putting a lot of effort on a wrong direction, on a wrong tooth, on a wrong technique, can land up in a failure like this. Gentleman is going to see the failure. So he has put a lot of effort in cleaning the or scraping the ice from his car before going to his office, but without knowing the end result, because he was in too much of a hurry. So in the neighbor's car, he has done all these efforts. So I always say we should always begin with the end in the mind. We should have a right goal, right mission, and right plan. So with this, I would like to thank God, as well as I would like to thank my mentors, because I always consider that we have to be lucky enough to get the success in the life. But for me, the definition of the luck is labor under correct knowledge. So I have been lucky enough that I've been mentored by stalwarts of prosthodontics like Dr. Padmanabhan, Dr. Verma, and Dr. Akshay Bhargav, who has made me or shaped me today what I am. So I am always thankful to them, and definitely a good teacher is never a good teacher without a good student. So I always thank my students for helping me out with this presentation. And never the least, I would like to thank the organizing committee for such a wonderful appreciation. Considering the time factor, considering the pandemic, they were managed to give all these souvenirs, beautiful souvenirs, memorable souvenirs, or well before time. So with this, I would like to thank all the August gathering for their patient hearing. This is my mail ID. We are open for the question session also. And if there is any queries which I can get back, once I'll read my mail, I'll get back as soon as possible. And with this, I would like to